Perfect.
Great. So yeah, take it away, Hope.
All right, I'm just going to share my screen. Good morning, everyone. All right. So does everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So hi, I'm Hope Kohtala. I work for Efficiency Maine as a program assistant in the EV programs, but also the low income programs as well. As Cashel and Troy said, we know that EVs are always changing. So we're just going to give you some updates on some of our initiatives that we are doing right now. So if anybody on the call doesn't know who Efficiency Maine is, we're a quasi-state agency that runs the state's energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. You might know us from the rebates that we do on heat pumps and many different things, both in our residential and commercial programs, but we also offer financing, provide technical information, and have a registry of vendors as well. And we're also funded by a lot of different sources, but these include the electric and natural gas ratepayers, regional greenhouse gas initiatives, ISO, New England Grid, grants, and a lot of other sources as well that are just continuing to come in. And we have a board that's appointed by the governor and it's confirmed by the legislator. So first thing I just wanted to tell you about is some upcoming EV events that are going to be happening. So the one that's coming up the fastest is going to be on this Sunday, and that's going to be at the Wells Library, and this is going to be EV car show. And we also heard that Tesla is going to be coming as well, so that's very exciting to provide some test drives as well and some more vehicle information. And then also there's going to be the Common Ground Fair as well. And this isn't just going to be EVs. Our commercial and residential programs will be there as well, but we'll have an EV program too there. And then also Electrify Freeport on September 25th at Freeport High School. And then on October 1st, there'll be a Drive Electric Maine event that Portland's running. And then also a Solar and EV Expo at Oxford Hills on October 1st as well from 12 to 4. So just wanted to give you an update on the federal tax credits. I'm guessing a lot of you guys have heard about the Inflation Reduction Act. This was signed into effect on August 16th and has immediately affected the eligibility of some vehicles that we have provided rebates on. But this is eligibility with the federal tax credit, not with our rebates. And we're anticipating that there's going to be additional changes as well to these federal tax credits. And for more information, we're having people go to the IRS's electric vehicle credit page that I've linked to this presentation that you'll receive at the end, because there's a lot of changing information about this. But with our eligible vehicle list on our website right now, we do have the most up-to-date version of which vehicles are still available for these federal tax credits if you were to buy a vehicle after the August 16th date. So this is just a map of the public electric vehicle charging stations. This map was made in March. And as you can see, the level 2 and level 3 stations, which are blue and orange, are the ones that have been funded by Efficiency Maine. And the other more faded out ones are the stations that are funded by other people. And the circle with the orange outline, that shows that those are the level 3 stations that are under construction. And that will be hopefully up and running soon. And we actually just received a map for this month showing the differences between March and September. And I can toggle to that right now. And you can see that we've expanded within, not even a year, the charging stations, which is really, really exciting for Maine. So I'll just toggle back to March again, just so you can see. So there's been growth not only by Efficiency Maine funded stations, but other stations as well, which is just what we want to see. And just to see it continue to grow is awesome. So another kind of pretty recent update is on August 19th. There was some new 120 kilowatt chargers that were installed in West Gardner and the Kennebunkport North and South service plazas, which are great. And this brings the new plug total to 4 DCF plugs at each site, which is great as well. It's nice to see more and more DCFCs popping up. So just another thing to let you know about as well is some EV charging initiatives. So we have an FON currently out right now, a funding opportunity notice for public level 2 EV chargers in rural communities outside of Cumberland and York counties, but we're expecting another funding opportunity in late 2022 and early 2023 for rural communities in Cumberland and York counties. And this is public level 2 chargers. So that's exciting as well. We're also planning on the installation of new DCFCs, and this is going to be starting in northern and eastern Maine and rural areas within those. And on the next page, I'll be showing you the alternative fuel corridors, and this is where we're going to be placing these level 3 chargers. And this is on every 50 miles of where these corridors have been designated. And these funds are going to be from federal funding sources that we just received. So this is the map I was talking about. It might be a little bit hard to see, I'm not sure, but this is the alternative fuel EV corridors. So as you can see, the numbers in parentheses are those stations that we need in order to meet that 50-mile requirement, which is part of the NEVI program. So as you can see, the exclamation points as well show the upgrades or new station needs for the Federal Highway Administration requirements that have been brought up recently. But this just shows the DCFCs that we're planning on installing in the near future. So just wanted to talk about our rebates briefly as well. So as of June of 2022, we expanded our eligibility for our low income enhanced rebates, which is really exciting. We used to only be able to access the LIHEAP list to give these enhanced rebates, which is the low income home energy assistance program. But we're now able to expand our eligibility to the supplemental nutritional assistance program, the temporary assistance for needy families, and Maine Care as well. So this has brought our list of available people for these enhanced rebates for EVs from 50,000 households to 200,000 households. So this is great news for more people to be able to have our enhanced rebates to buy or purchase an electric vehicle in the future. And then just one last thing, we still have EV incentives for business fleets. These are enhanced rebates on cars and pickup trucks and commercial vans as well for businesses. It's 50 vehicles, so this is a limited time offer, but it's still available as of today. And just as a note, the cars and pickup trucks enhanced rebates for businesses, these people or these businesses must have 5 or more vehicles registered in Maine in order to receive this incentive. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, and we also have a bunch of resources up here, and we'll be sending this slideshow as well with the links that were provided in it. So thank you.
Well, thanks. I do have a couple of questions, so if you don't mind. So
Yeah.
maybe if you flip back to your maps showing the new chargers, the new ones proposed, this one, well, this one will do too. So it looks like there's some new ones proposed for some pretty good places like Ellsworth and Bangor. Looks like Newport and Fairfield. So those will be really useful to a lot of folks. So those are under construction now, or do you have any sense of when they're going to come online?
Yeah, they're under construction. I'm not entirely sure. Molly might have an answer to that.
Yep, December.
December, oh great.
So that's for Ellsworth, Bangor, Newport, Fairfield, Belfast, Lewiston, and Auburn.
That's exciting.
And yeah, those are the yellow dots. Should be finished by December.
What do the exclamation points mean?
So those are spots where there are already DC fast charging stations, or will be at the end of this year. And so it's possible that to meet the NEVI standards of 50 miles, and they have to be at least 150 kilowatts, which none of our stations are. It means that it's possible that some of those stations would get upgraded in order to meet those levels. It's also possible that we would just construct new stations. So that's, if you can read the legend, it's really small, but it says upgrade or new station. We're not sure ultimately what's going to happen at those sites yet, but we just wanted to indicate that something will need to be done in those places where there are already DCFC.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I mean, especially the one in Bangor and anyone heading up to central and heading towards northern Maine, that's going to be a huge help. Speaking from experience.
Yeah,
So.
and Hope mentioned this, but so this exclusive, not including what you see here on the screen, we are putting out an RFP for far northern Maine and down east. So going all the way across to Eastport, or not Eastport, Calais,
Yep.
Machias, and then all the way up to Fort Kent and Presque Isle. That's coming pretty soon at the end of this year. And is not included as part of this NEVI plan. That's separate. So in addition to what you see here, there will be stations approximately every 50 miles on those key routes going up to the Crown of Maine and across to the New Brunswick border.
That's fantastic. Yeah, especially folks who might want to visit Katahdin and Baxter State Park. It'll be good to have something up closer to Millinocket. Wow, that's good. They're really excellent. Nice. Anyone else have any in the audience have any questions for Hope or Molly before we jump into more stuff? Bill has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I think Molly sort of got into it. Is there basically an industry standard for these chargers? You know, I've seen, like, probably the last 10 years or so, you see these Tesla chargers pop up, and I don't know whether those have the same type of devices, whether any EV car can hook up to those. And then a second question, do you know where the gas tax for highway maintenance, where that's going as a political issue? Is there going to be, I know people have talked about in the past adding a surcharge to EVs to cover that loss of revenue.
Yeah, so to the first question, Tesla stations currently cannot be used by other vehicles. They have a different connector, it just won't work. Tesla has talked about opening up their network to drivers of all electric vehicles as soon as the end of this year. We don't have any definite answers on that. It sounds like it might happen more gradually instead of all at once. But it is something that's in the future, a possibility, and we're obviously keeping an eye on that because, you know, there's a supercharger, for instance, in Medway. And so if that became available to everybody, there wouldn't really be a reason to build a new giant station there. So that is definitely on the horizon. It's possible that we will see that within the next few years. It would just require them to,
with a dongle or some sort of extra connector you would use on your car?
it sounds like yes, they might be just adding those onto the stations. It's not too difficult to add an additional connector onto a station. You just add another cord. So they might be doing that. They've done it in Europe, but Europe doesn't have the issue with the different connectors. So it's something that they're working on. I believe it'll be easy to figure out once they open the network up. And then to your question about gas tax, I'm not aware of a particular bill in Maine that's trying to advance that right now. I do know that, you know, there's pretty general support for some kind of a surcharge or a mileage-based fee that EV drivers might have to pay. So it seems like it's a matter of time until we get that figured out. It doesn't seem like that would be hugely controversial. So I would imagine that might happen sometime, but I'm not aware specifically in Maine of whether that's on the table at this very time.
Thank you.
See. All right, Cash, what's next?
I actually do have just a quick clarifying question
cool.
on your last slide, Hope, for the business fleets. Do they need to be adding 5 electric vehicles or transitioning 5 vehicles, or do they just need to own 5 vehicles and be replacing one of them?
Yes, they just need to own 5 vehicles in their fleet. They don't have to be electric, they can be gas, but it's just to show the size of the company.
That's great. I mean, the business trying to just add 1 electric car incrementally can do it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sizable rebate, so small businesses, you know. Yeah, I think all the taxi companies are based out of Portland, so I didn't have my influence there, but taxis would be a great one to get involved.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, Troy and I can just talk a bit about what we're doing in our communities, because there's a lot going on. So I'll just throw some of it at you. first, very exciting, and I saw Chuck Hayward on the call with Revision Energy. We're signing a letter of intent with Revision Energy, City of South Portland is, and this letter of intent essentially says we're going to assess a number of sites across the city, mostly city-owned property, to put charging at, and we'll just be working iteratively, collaboratively, but with a focus on co-locating charging stations with renters and equity and just spatially spreading it out across the city. We're hoping to put in around 36 chargers. This is kind of what Troy's doing with his EVgo contract, but Revision and us we're working more collaboratively in this, and we'll try to identify federal funds that will help us put chargers in places that people don't necessarily have EVs yet, and so that's great. And we're going to start doing that this fall, and hopefully see some chargers go in sometime next year. It's mostly level 2s, and the focus is just getting as many chargers as we can into the city. It's just one way we can influence things from a city standpoint. Another way is to do a EV charging infrastructure ordinance, which just passed City Council first reading this past Tuesday, which is very exciting. Essentially, this is going to require new and reconstructed developments to add some level of EV charging infrastructure to what they're doing. A lot of it is just as basic as adding conduit underneath the ground and adding panel capacity to the buildings, with the thought in mind that this is an opportune time to do that, and it can be very expensive and prohibitive as a retrofit to do that later. So that'll hopefully pass council in October and go into effect sometime in October. But it will mean businesses and large residential dwellings will have the underground infrastructure to support EV charging in the future, and developers won't have to go back and do that later and have to rip up pavement and everything. We also just launched our Electrify Everything program on September 1st. The South Portland specific rebate program that will match efficiency Maine rebates for electric heat pumps, electric vehicles, insulation, and then we've also added on e-bikes, e-cargo bikes, and electric lawn care equipment. So the amounts you get for different things vary, but if you're interested in checking it out, you can go to southportland.org/electrify. And it's pretty simple. I mean, if you qualify for the efficiency Maine rebates, we're just matching that and looking at proof of the efficiency Maine rebate. And for the things that efficiency Maine doesn't offer rebates for, e-bikes and electric lawn care equipment, we're just checking receipts and making sure that's all straightened out. But it's pretty exciting. Households can get up to $2,000 for electric equipment. Just another way we're trying to get people to electrify. I've talked about this before, but we also have an EV charging grant program for businesses. We've awarded 3 grants to South Portland businesses. We cover 50% of the cost of the electric vehicle charging stations and infrastructure. None of them have gone in yet, mostly because they're doing larger projects that have long time frames. But we should be seeing those soon. And I think a total of 18 chargers are going in between those 3 projects. So that's great. And then the last thing I'll mention is our city fleet. We have a city fleet of 229 vehicles, I think. And We just added a Bolt EUV to our fleet, and so we've been trying to chip away at the light duty vehicles and electrify those. But we're starting to look at the bigger heavy duty transit buses and how we can electrify those as well. I think the transit buses are the thing we've done the most about, and we're trying to look at the feasibility of doing it in 2025. And the way transit bus ordering works, I mean, you need to order them in like 2023 to get them in 2025 because there's a lot of federal hoops you have to jump through. But it might involve en route charging. It might involve big facility upgrades for storing these vehicles indoors. So there's a lot of lead time that we need to figure things out, and we've started to do that. So hopefully following Metro and BSUB's lead on getting some electric transit buses. But I'll pass it over to Troy to add on to all that.
Cool, thanks, Cash. So on heavy equipment, kind of in line with buses, we're working really hard to try to get an electric garbage truck. So it's kind of exciting. Aaron and I met with our public works team yesterday to talk about their plans for moving forward with electrifying the fleet, and we were thinking they were, asking us to help them think about how to upgrade the electrical services and infrastructure at their public works facilities so they can support future, hopefully electric trash truck, but also making plans to, make electric street sweepers and start bringing light duty pickup trucks when they become more available. So they know they're going to need more electric capacity. So they've asked us to help think that through, and if we can identify some resources to help them begin that work they need to have in place before they can add a lot of electric vehicles. So that was really, we're really excited that they're excited about it. So that's we really need cooperation from all of our departments to make this work. So that was a good meeting, I thought. Let's see what else. So Cash mentioned they just passed their EV charging ordinance. So we have a little different setup in Portland. We have requirements in our technical design manual. So the current version requires any parking with more than 5 spaces to have 20% installed level 2 chargers, and the rest of the facility be EV charging ready. So we want them to run conduit and have a panel that can be upgraded. So we're making a few tweaks to that technical design manual pretty soon. So it's going to be pretty similar. But one of the things that we're going to talk about is allowing people building parking to propose adding DC fast chargers in lieu of some number of level 2s. Will, the cost differential between level 2s and DC fast charging is pretty immense. So we're inviting, I think the policy recommendation we're going to make to the planning board is that that people who want to build charging, build parking lots could negotiate to add DC fast chargers instead of the level 2s. I mean, it's going to be for some place like an employer that's going to have long-term parking for employees, level 2s make a lot of sense. But if someone has a retail establishment or something and they want to add a fast charger, I would love to see that. So we're opening the door for people to propose that, which is kind of cool. Let's see. So the EVgo program, if people weren't familiar with it, we struck a deal with EVgo, which is a big national EV charging company, to bring fast charging and a lot of level 2 charging to Portland. So actually at the next council meeting, we'll be authorizing an easement for the Spring and High Street parking lot. We have 4 level 2s there. We're also going to be adding, once we get our easement through and start permitting, for 4 fast charging spots at that location. And actually they're planning to install a 350 kilowatt charger. So that'll be kind of exciting to see one that powerful here in Portland. And we're also working on location on Commercial Street for fast chargers. Still kind of working through some of the site issues down there, getting the easements all in place. And then also we have a series of what we're calling neighborhood charging hubs. So Deering Oaks parking lot will be getting some level 2s. East End community school parking lot and Reiki School. Those are the first neighborhood charging hubs. Those will be level 2 chargers that are available to people to park. We're putting them in places where there are a lot of renters or people who live in condos who need an off-street place to park where they can let their car stay overnight and come back in the morning. So that's the whole concept, is to put level 2 charging in places with high demand from people who live in multifamily buildings. So most homeowners who get an EV will probably charge at home, but if you don't have a driveway or access to an outdoor plug, it's going to be essential to have convenient level 2 charging for overnight. So that's kind of our goal. So we've lined up spots for 12, and we need to find spots for another 32 other level 2. So we're working on identifying the locations for those currently. So that's all. Hopefully, and I think we'll be seeing the fast chargers and the first 12 level 2s by March next spring. And I'm actually keeping my fingers crossed we can get at least one of the banks of fast chargers installed before the end of the year. So hopefully we'll be seeing some big changes in charging opportunities here in Portland really soon. So that's kind of my update.
Troy and his office also has a Electrify Everything program that offers how much for EV charging? I think there's something in there, right?
Yeah, so our current iteration of Electrify Everything is kind of running its course. So we did offer people a $500 discount through Revision as our partner for Electrify Everything. But yeah, that one's going to run its course, and we're currently strategizing for our next iteration of Electrify Everything here in Portland. I love what you guys are doing, Cash, with the e-bikes and the car incentives too. That was a great addition, I think.
We've had, we started the program a week ago, and we've had 6 people come in for e-bike rebates.
Oh, super.
Yeah, it's instant.
Yeah, that's great.
People are coming in.
That might be a good topic for a future Coffee and Climate, e-bikes. Would be people interested in e-bike conversation and bring in some experts? Yeah, sounds like let's line that up for a future conversation. E-bikes.
Cool. I've never looked back since I bought mine. So
nice. Yeah, no, I haven't got one yet. I'm looking. I don't need one, but I kind of want one. Bill.
Is GPCOG involved in this at all, Troy? I'm just thinking that an electric bus could take the place of the Gorham connector. I know that maybe that's a lost cause, but so many of these issues are regional rather than strictly municipality. I don't know whether they were doing anything or not.
I'm not sure specifically. I mean, certainly they're working on the study, the mass transit study between Portland and Gorham. I don't know. I haven't heard an update on that recently. And of course, the Portland City Council made some news suggesting that we emphasize, take a timeout on building spurs. Not every community in Maine agrees with that position, but I think having a conversation about how to expand transit opportunities certainly fits in with One Client Future and some of the regional planning efforts that GPCOG have taken on. But in terms of, I know GPCOG definitely supports communities working on their climate action plans, and I'm not sure what they're doing particularly on EVs though, but I know we definitely appreciate the planning work that Efficiency Maine's doing with the developing the charging infrastructure around the state. So we could have great, here in Portland, South Portland, we can have wonderful infrastructure, but if we can't get to our destinations around the state, it's not that great. So definitely it's important to see all the work happening in other communities. We had some questions that came through Instagram, right, Aaron? Did we get any more? You mentioned a couple to me the other day.
Yeah, we get this question a lot, I feel like, and we kind of touched on it a bit already today, but something that we get a lot is how renters can have an EV and be able to charge it in the city, in a convenient way to make it more accessible for renters. So I know we touched on it a bit, but that's definitely the most common question we get.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, that's like the central question. We want people to drive electric, and until there's confidence that they're not going to be stranded, and then the people who live in apartments and condos are not going to feel comfortable purchasing an EV. So that's what that's really it's part of the equity approach too. Not everyone lives in a single family home, and so that's absolutely an important strategy for Portland is identifying dense neighborhoods with lots of renters, and using the resources we've got access to through the EVgo partnership to get those sited. So everyone knows that maybe they probably don't need to charge every night, but they feel comfortable that they can have a place to go conveniently at least every few days to keep their car topped off, so they're not stranded. They can get on the road to where they need to go. But I think the fast charging network is important for that as well, because even you're gonna have access to level 2s, you can do your daily charging or regular charging, but there's gonna come a time when your car is not up fully charged. You need to head out for a quick road trip or unexpected thing you need to go do. You need to be able to get your car charged quickly. So I think having access to a lot of convenient fast chargers is also part of that. Making EV making EV ownership a possibility for folks. But I think definitely I think it's really important that we kind of keep renters in mind as we develop our infrastructure, because like I have an EV, I charge mostly at home. Other people with driveways are going to do the same. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Cash.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going through a similar process with revision and assessing sites, and one of our main criteria is co-locating with renters, and it works from both a lot of people are going to use this, and it benefits the community, but there's only so many city-owned sites, and so it does get tricky. We're looking at every city-owned site we have and saying, how can we make this work? But it may be that we have to look at third parties, at businesses or other property owners, and try to add chargers there. So we're working through all that, and it can be hard to know like exactly where all the renters are too. I mean, we have pretty good data, but those things change too, and having really fine-grained data at the city is something we're constantly trying to improve as well. So we're working on that, just sort of in the background, mapping and figuring all that out. And just to all this, the two ordinances that we're passing in our respective cities will go a long way to ensuring that the infrastructure that's required for EV charging is built in new developments, and anytime a parking lot is ripped up and reconstructed. Both of our ordinances apply to multifamily dwellings. Ours won't apply for certain multifamily dwellings, but landlords you're gonna have a tough time convincing a landlord to rip up a parking lot to put in EV charging. But if the conduit is already there and the panel capacity is already there for EV charging, and all you're asking them to do is slap an EV charger on their panel, or on your panel as a renter, it becomes a much easier ask, and is way more likely to happen. So we want to create that situation for people. We live in old cities where there are a lot of old buildings and a lot of people who live or don't have off-street parking, and so that it only goes so far, and we'll have to do everything we can with the contracts we're building with EVgo and Revision, but it's a bit of everything. Yeah.
I know we're fortunate. We've been working with the school department. We have a lot of neighborhood schools here in Portland. So the school department's been a great partner so far. So literally they're hosting two of the first, of the first neighborhood charging hubs at schools, which is great. So the idea is, most of the time the school parking lots sit empty. So residents will be able to access the chargers that we're installing in the school parking lots during times when the school is not in business or not in operation. So kind of similar to what we do with parking bans in the wintertime. If they're like, we have a snow ban program. So if, we call a parking ban, people can drive to the school parking lots and, be there overnight while they plow the streets. So this is going to be very similar to the charging. So anytime when school's not in session, so holidays, evenings, weekends, people have access to the chargers pretty much any time. But we are going to ask people to please not use them during school hours because school personnel, and hopefully we'll have more and more school EVs who can use them while school's in session as well. But that's one of the ways we're going to be able to get dispersal around the community, is working with the school department. We also are fortunate we have quite a few neighborhood parks. We have installed chargers at Payson Park, which are pretty popular, and there's certainly homes in around the neighborhood there, and we'll look at some other locations. But dispersion, I think, is really important.
Troy, not to put you on the spot, but have you given any more thought to removing the 2-hour limit overnight so that people can charge throughout the night and not have to come
100%
unplug their car at 3 a.m.?
Certainly. Yeah, none of the EVgo chargers will have that. And actually, I don't think we're enforcing that at the moment either. Because again, particularly like the fast chart, the level 2s we have like in the parking lot at Spring and High, that's a neighborhood charging hub too, because it's right in the West End, all around lots of renters. So that one definitely doesn't have that turned on. We want to make sure, we're still refining that, but I think that's toggled off at the moment. So
good.
Good question though.
And I am a little curious about snow maintenance. Do you have any anecdotes from last winter?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah,
I feel like plows just tend to throw it on the side of the road, which happens to be where chargers are.
Yeah, we haven't had so certainly we have we've had to deal with that because we've had our chargers, or we've had a bunch of them over the winter. So so like for instance, the one in City Hall, the crews come and plow the plaza. So we have to get somebody to go shovel out the snowbank around the charger, and so that's the approach we're gonna have to take. And the other part, we haven't had too much trouble with the other parking lots that have chargers, but we'll have to keep an eye on it just to make sure that they're shoveled out. So we'll see if there's one that's kind of blocked, we'll have to call Public Works and have them come and remove a little bit of snow around the charger and make sure it's accessible. So far, so good. It'll be more important as we get more of them to keep, it might become a bit more of a burden as we build out the network a bit more, but so far hasn't been too much of a trouble. It hasn't been too much trouble, so.
Yeah, I mean, eventually that I do see that becoming sort of problematic. When you have 50 chargers, you might have to sign a small maintenance contract with somebody to come, make sure they're accessible to people.
Yeah, so far it's between Parks and Public Works, we've been able to keep them pretty clear. Welcome, Julie. So, anyone else have any questions about? Hey, who has an EV so far? It's like, do anyone own an EV yet? A couple of us do. So curious, if you don't have one yet, is it something obviously you're thinking about it because you're on our call, and so is there what would be enough to get you to pull the trigger, so to speak, and be an EV owner? Anyone have any thoughts about that? Curious how, as we think about ways to encourage and provide opportunities for EV drivers, I'd love to hear feedback from folks about what could help them make that decision. Oh, hi, Pat. You have a thought?
Hi there. Well, my car has to die more than it's dead yet before I buy a new car, but it definitely will be some kind of a hybrid or an electric vehicle. But I do have an e-bike, and I'm going to come down and talk about those. I just love the thing. Oh my goodness, it just changed my whole life. I can go anywhere. I live in South Portland anyway, so I can just buzz around on this little thing, and it's really, really fun.
Nice.
So I feel like I'm contributing a little bit anyway.
Yeah, that's great. My folks bought e-bikes a few months ago, and they're in their 80s, and they love their e-bikes. They ride them all over the place, which is, they rode their non-e-bikes some, but now that they have their e-bikes, they ride like every day, and they're riding all over the place, which is really great.
Yeah, there's no stopping us.
Yep, that's fantastic. Were you gonna make a comment, Ruth? Jeff? Oh, you're on mute. There you
Thanks,
go.
Troy. I was going to ask a question, but before I do that, just to respond to your question about what are some of the roadblocks for folks. I already am an EV owner, but I live in a condominium development, which it's a 90-unit complex off of Commercial Street. And I've been working with a couple of people here to get a charging station in our common area garage. And I know from the conversations that I'm having with my neighbors who are interested in EVs, but what they are waiting for is having a charger in the garage that makes it means it's very easy for charging. I sort of took the leap, and I'm out using the public network, and so I'm thrilled at all the efforts that you and South Portland are doing to beef up the charging infrastructure. I still think that's kind of the critical piece for people who are interested conceptually, but not ready, as you said, to pull the trigger, because they want to be assured that the charging is reliable and convenient.
Ruth, if you don't mind me asking, how do you and your HOA foresee sharing one charger? If you were to start with one charger, have you sort of thought that out, how you might move the cars around and everything?
A little bit, yeah. We've, they're about, right now there are 4 people who own EVs. A couple of them are able to charge at their workplaces. There are another probably 5 to 8 residents who are interested in purchasing an EV when we've got the charging capacity. So let's call that a pool of a dozen people possibly. And so, we're a small friendly group. We've sort of figured, okay, we can all, work this out in some kind of sign up, system, or, rotating our cars around. It's been kind of informal, because the numbers so far are small. We all know each other, and we don't have a charger yet, so it's all in theory. But we've definitely, that question that you're posing, Cash, is definitely on the table.
Right, because you don't, not everybody needs their own charger. You might charge once a week, so that's trying to exactly spend the least, to sort of maximize what you're getting out of it. Makes sense, but it takes coordination, and not everyone gets along. So give me a lot of those conversations, and multi-unit, whether it's condo or renters, figuring it out amongst themselves. I get that question a lot, and I just kind of shrug and say, we're going to have to figure it out. There's a lot of talk out there about how people are going about it, but there's a million ways to do it.
It's definitely a process for sure. Could I just
ask your question?
My question. So again, super exciting that our 2 cities are being so aggressive on this front. It's really happening. I'm thrilled. But to add on to that, I'm just curious, on Commercial Street or other places where you see high volume of traffic that might be good candidates for chargers as you build out the network. I'm curious about whether you've talked to, it's a little counterintuitively, but gas stations like the Irving station on Commercial. to what extent might they be interested if they're kind of fuel agnostic, they not having to, just be pumping gas, but would they be potential places to install either level 2s or fast chargers? And I'm just curious about, what level of receptivity or resistance you might have encountered if you're having those kinds of conversations with gas station owners.
So we haven't actually had conversations with the gas station owners at this point. I think that may be something that they might consider as a good business opportunity as more EVs come online. I think, and maybe Molly or Hope can speak to it. I know like in Europe, we're seeing I think Irving has some presence in Scandinavia and is doing charging. I don't know, has Efficiency Maine had conversations with any of the gas station companies or anything, Hope or Molly?
Yeah, we do. We talk to a lot of gas station owners, and actually Irving is, they have 4 of those new under construction stations. So 4 of those are going to be at Irving stations. So yeah, they're certainly interested and receptive. That there is one issue, which is that at least some gas stations in more congested areas, parking is very, very valuable. It has like a monetary value upwards in like the $700,000s of dollars. So they actually keep, they know how many people are coming through, and the longer those people are staying, it's a little counterintuitive, but people that are parking for a longer period of time are taking up more space and are actually taking up potential business for them. So there is a bit of a challenge there, but I think on balance, gas stations have been pretty receptive to the idea of at least fast charging stations, because they see that's the future. There's a couple of, Circle K in Canada and in Norway have done it. I think another Canadian chain has been doing it across the country. So we'll definitely see them as an important player in the fast charging space.
And I noticed when I was driving around Eastern Maine over the summer, there's a chain of convenience stores that many of them have level 2 chargers, which are better than nothing if you're out in the middle of nowhere, but not always the best option. So, Barbara, we want to get to you. You have your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to your question. I do have a Prius, but not the Prius Prime. But so my goal is to get an electric vehicle sometime next spring. Right now I'm going to be undertaking getting heat pumps. So I've got a budgetary, which comes first. And so I'm thinking that I'll do the heat pumps first, and then the EV. And I think charging is, an issue, but I own my own home, and it's not that far. It'd be nice to have, I'm in South Portland. It'd be nice to have the faster charging stations. I think there's one near me that's at a city facility that is a longer charging station, or I think there are 3, but anyway, but my plan is that it's just a number of projects to get electrified. But I think it's wonderful. I'm very excited about the whole electrify Portland and South Portland and everything you're doing.
Great,
well,
thanks. I think
you're choosing between the 2 most impactful things you can do right now. So
I think
that's okay.
I think, since you have your Prius, I think going with the heat pump first is probably the right call. So, and you can get your car later. Maybe you'll get some more federal incentives if you wait a little bit longer too. So that's great.
So we at South Portland actually did talk to Irving Corporate, and because we have 3 Irvings, I think, in South Portland. And yeah, so those conversations do need to happen sort of at the corporate level. I'm not even sure how ownership works locally, but we were trying to convince them to do some fast charging here in South Portland, but they were looking at their entire network, across quite a bit of Quebec and all through Canada, and they really wanted us to sweeten the deal more, and their potential usership was just more up there. The EV adoption rates are through the roof up there, so I think it'll come with time. but we couldn't quite make it happen this time. But the relationship is there. So.
Right.
Did you have your hand up earlier, Kelly? I thought I saw your hand. Did you want to have a question or comment?
Sorry, no, just user error.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Is there anything else you think we should know, Hope or Molly, about? I was going to ask you a question, actually, kind of jumping off Ruth's comment. I know in the past you've had funding opportunities for multifamily buildings and condos. Is there an opportunity coming up in the near future for those groups again? Or
nothing on the horizon in
Mhm.
particular. We did a round that was all awarded last year for multifamily, so we're kind of still waiting for those projects to come online. The state is working to develop a program that would use some federal grant funds to hopefully stand up a multifamily charging program. And so that's just to be determined. We have to get the funding first before we can do something, but that's the hope, is that we could use these federal funds through a state grant program to help with more of that level 2 and neighborhood DCFC charging. So I would say stay tuned. It's a huge priority for us in the DOT, so definitely trying to make it happen.
And Molly, my understanding is that there was $7.5 billion for EV charging nationally, and 2/3 of that was the more rigid formula funding for the alternative fuel corridors, and the other third is discretionary funding that could be used for something like a multifamily dwelling type program. Sort of, once it trickles down to the states to figure out.
Yeah.
Do I have that right? Yeah.
I think it's more of half and half, but yeah, that's exactly the way we have to apply and have our application awarded, versus the fast charging formula funds were just handed to us to use for fast charging in corridors.
Cool. Bill, you have another question.
Yeah, a question. The unit cost, Troy, that you've negotiated with EVgo, is that what's the savings there percentage wise compared to a private individual installing a charging station?
So we're really excited about our contract with EVgo. It doesn't require any upfront city investment at all. So we're providing, we're fortunate that we had some spots available that we were interested in having chargers that aligned with where EVgo was thinking they wanted chargers. And so the way our contract's working is that they are going to be paying us a site license for installing their fast chargers on city property, and we're able to take that site license fee, and as we install level 2s as part of our agreement, it will reduce their costs until we can have up to 44 level 2s that will not have, we won't be paying any money for installation of. So we're able to align our interests with EVgo in a way that meets both of our needs. But in terms of for expenses of people charge, costs are all over the place, and really depending on what type of charge you want to do and how much site work you have to do. So if you're installing an EV charger in a garage, the costs are not that high necessarily. But in our case, like installing public chargers on on city property in a parking lot or on the street, all the excavation. And as soon as you get involved in excavation, as soon as you get to say what an average, how much each one's going to cost, it really is site specific. So I don't know, I see Chuck there, you've got some experience installing them. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or.
Yeah, I mean, it really does vary depending on a lot of factors, and excavation is a huge one, like you were saying. If it's in a parking garage, it's relatively inexpensive because you're just running a conduit on exposed walls for the most part. And also the other challenge is whether or not you have the electrical capacity to support it. So in places that have sufficient capacity to add chargers, it's not bad. But if you know you need to bring in a new service, or if you need to upgrade the existing service, that can get in the thousands of dollars pretty quickly. So it's really there's a lot of factors, and that's why it's so hard to estimate what it's going to look like for any particular project. And gas stations specifically, that's one of the challenges there too. Because not only is there the cost of excavation, but they tend to have, gas tanks underneath the ground. So it makes it even more challenging. So while some of these places seem like they make a lot of sense, there's actually a lot of logistical hurdles to overcome when you do them.
Yeah.
I was just wondering whether it makes sense to aggregate some commercial properties for competitive bid. Maybe those are hotels.
Most of the hotels actually have chargers now. It's becoming pretty typical. If you looked at PlugShare in Portland, you'll see there are quite a few level 2 chargers at hotels, because their customers are coming to visit and they want to charge up while they're overnight and while they're visiting the city. So hotels are doing, and a lot of the hospitality folks are moving that direction pretty quickly. But fast chargers are super important, and that was a key point, is investigating electrical, the ability of the local circuits to handle particularly EV fast charging. I know we had to sit down with CMP and make sure that the local grid could handle a 350 kilowatt fast charger. So, before we picked those locations, we double checked with CMP. It's we're going to have a huge load coming here. Are you going to be able to support that? And so luckily those two places have enough capacity on this local circuit to support that. But that's an important question to ask before you start spending money on excavations and stuff.
And is CMP still coming to the S&T meeting next week?
So next week is no, so it looks like they'll probably be on October 16th now, because we actually canceled the S&T meeting for later in September, because some conflicts with some of the counselors that weren't able to attend. So looks like CMP will be October 16th now.
Okay.
Cool. And it looks like it's 10 o'clock. We had some great questions. Thanks everybody for great questions and some conversation. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And our next topic for next month is, Aaron, what's our next topic? I think
we're going to be talking about community solar next month.
Oh, great. So,
perfect.
So yeah,
great.
So we'll join us next month for community solar. We'll have some experts and talk about how to get signed up for some community solar. So we will see you then, and hope you have a great weekend and enjoy the nice weather today. So see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hope and Molly.
All right.